Hello everyone, and welcome to a very special edition of today's episode. Yes, that's right folks. It's the story of Sodom and Gomorrah, the cartoon version, hosted by Charlton Heston. See, it's him. This is a little VHS tape that I picked up at the local thrift store, part of the series called Greatest Heroes and Legends of the Bible. And this one is particularly interesting because it deals with the oft-controversial story of Sodom and Gomorrah. The story of Sodom and Gomorrah, jam-packed into one children's videotape. Yes! Well, I've been looking forward to this review, so why don't we dive right in, shall we? Yeah. We start our journey with none other than the famed Charlton Heston giving the overview of what's to come.
The notorious cities of Sodom and Gomorrah.
Well, thanks for that, Charlton Heston. So
There
now...
are a great many characters in this story, some good, some evil. But there's no question
Charlton.
who the hero is.
Charlton,
It's
come on.
Abraham,
I know you
first
can
of
hear
the
me,
great
fella.
Hebrew prophets.
Let's get a move on, shall
The
we?
story,
Huh?
as it's told here, opens when Abraham, or Abram.
Okay, Charlton, I know you're all big and famous and everything, but come on, we want to the children want to watch the cartoon already. Yeah, the children. But really, he goes on for like 6 minutes. And not only that, he summarizes the entire plotline to the whole cartoon. Way to be a spoil sport, Charlton.
That it was not he who broke the idol.
So now, he finally passes the storytelling torch to his animated friend Simon, who's pretty much the narrator of the entire story.
It has been many years since the Great Flood.
Wait a minute. That voice sounds oddly familiar.
How come? Piccolo? Gee, are you okay, Tien? Well, Mom packed lots of things to keep me busy.
Hold my root beer. That's Saffron Henderson, the ocean dub Canadian voice of Gohan from Dragon Ball Z. You know, the one before Funimation? The one that debuted on UPN? Before Cartoon Network? When it wasn't as popular? Come on, children. That's it. I'm just gonna call him Gohan from now on. So Gohan introduces us to a young Abraham, or Abram, as he is known early in life, who...
Are you sure you can handle it?
Don't worry, I know what I'm doing.
Wait a minute. The animation department and voice casting must have been mixed up. This guy's supposed to be in his late teens, and yet he sounds like an 8-year-old. In this part of the film, Abram points out that the idols that his family worships aren't really alive.
We both know it's impossible for that to happen. These idols are not alive.
Then why do you pray to them?
Oh yes, good point, son. We'll get rid of them right away. Good. It's important to note that Sodom and Gomorrah isn't the focal point of this entire film. It really revolves around key points in Abraham's life. And while Sodom and Gomorrah is one of those key points, it happens only briefly in the film. And come to think of it, that story doesn't even revolve around Abraham, but his cousin, Lot. But don't you worry, folks, we'll get to that soon enough. So we actually watch a bit about how Abram grows into adulthood, meets and marries his first wife, Sarai, and his first contact with, well, God. And you know how most people portray God as this oversized, aged white man with long white hair and a white beard? I guess to portray wisdom? Well, this cartoon takes a more sophisticated approach.
I promise you and your descendants the land of Canaan.
And they do that. However, I do think that the film does a good job portraying God as authoritative, just, and even personable. Early on, Abram's father tells him and the family that their people need to move to Canaan due to an oncoming famine.
But the road to Canaan was long and hard.
You know, 'cause that guy tripped over a rock. Might be rough. Well, apparently, that whole rock incident was enough to force them to make a pit stop in a land called Haran. And Abraham's father just ups and decides to say, probably thought those rocks were too much of a hazard or something, and didn't want to trip himself. However, Abraham still has this sinking feeling that he needs to press on. And I gotta tell ya, this portrayal of Abraham doesn't mess around. Just look at this fight scene involving a mob beating up on an old man. Abraham, action hero, defending the elderly on the street level. And it is here where the Lord first speaks with Abram. Really love those sparkling fireworks effects. Really adds to the whole majesty of the situation. So the Lord makes a promise to Abram that he will bear many offspring and that they will become a great nation. He then urges him to press on to the land which he promised them, Canaan. Then he falls on his face in complete reverence to what he just witnessed. And then we just cut to this scene where he's just hanging out nonchalantly, like nothing ever happened.
My husband, what has happened to you?
Don't worry, honey. I'm just hanging out, talking to God and everything. No big deal. You probably wouldn't understand.
Who has done this to you?
Yeah, it could have been that other God I spoke to the other day, but you wouldn't understand that either.
If he is the God of our fathers, why did he come to you?
What, you don't think I'm worthy enough?
You?
Oh. Although a bit on the fence about the situation, Abram pushes forward to find the truth. And did I mention there are catchy musical numbers in this picture too?
Abraham, you knew from a very young age, God speaks to your heart, not to your face. Now he tells you lead your people to a special place, 'cause you're the chosen one. Abraham, Abraham, what you gonna do? God's chosen light is all over you. It's on your face, it's on your brow, it's in your heart, and God knows how. So what, oh, what, oh, what are you gonna do now?
And things go pretty well until famine hits, which actually forces them to stop in Egypt and the land of Bethel. But trouble brews when Abraham's people and Lot's people fight over the land. And you know what that means, people. Abram's gonna be kicking butt and taking names. You do not want to get on this guy's bad side. Oh man, he's got a fence post. That's right, Abram. Sock it to him.
Stop now!
Yeah.
What do you think you're doing? Your sheep now. Not stop this in the name of the Lord!
No one tells me what to do. I have a dagger. Oh man, and this is a kid show? Hardcore. What have I done? My dagger's all bloody now. Somebody, please clean my dagger. So Abram proceeds to get patched up, and he and Lot decide to take their people separate ways. And this is our first mention of Sodom, as Lot proceeds to go that way, despite the warnings. Uh-oh. SpaghettiOs. What about the famine? And interestingly enough, some kings from countries I don't remember storm into Sodom and Gomorrah, and they take Lot prisoner. Being the action hero that he already is, Abram swoops in to save the day. The day one. Whoa. Are they wearing any clothes underneath there? It's okay, guys. They are married. And then God drops by to remind Abram that he will make him into a great nation. And then Abram reminds God that Sarai is barren, so that ain't gonna work. God, of course, responds like, don't worry about it, Abram. I got this. I'm the Almighty. And Abram shuts his trap. But even still, for many years, Abram and Sarai couldn't conceive a child. So Sarai's all like, yo hubby, Abram, I ain't conceiving. God ain't doing his job, you know? I'm supposed to be having a baby now, right? And she decides to take matters into her own hands. Hey, Abram, come on. Take my servant woman, Hagar, as your wife. Let her be a surrogate. And Abram's like, okay. So Hagar gets pregnant, and guess what? Sarai's plan doesn't go as smoothly as she thought it would.
I need your help with the firewood.
But I'm pregnant. I can't work now.
You can still work for months. Now come.
Do you want to risk losing the only child Abram may ever have?
There's something I must tell you.
Looks like somebody's getting a swell head. But if you really think about it, it is a valid excuse. I mean, Sarai, what are you? Some kind of slave driver?
You can still work for months.
Hagar, can you get me a drink?
But I'm pregnant.
Hagar, can you pick up those presents we bought for Abram's birthday?
I never met a...
Hagar, hurry up. We need to deliver the baby now.
But I'm pregnant.
Then again, Hagar did embarrass her in front of all her friends. Long story short, a jealous rivalry begins, and Sarai begins to shut Hagar out.
Abram, I want Hagar out now. You love her more than me.
Now, you know that's not true, Sarai. This was your plan.
Well, now she's smug and disobedient.
I'm pregnant.
I'm busy, Sarai. You control your maid. Do as you please with her.
See what happens when you have two wives, guys? Don't do it! However, God has pity on Hagar because he's seen her misery, and he promises to make her son into a great nation as well.
I can raise the child on my own.
You are carrying a special child, a son whom you will call Ishmael, because the Lord has seen your misery.
And one more huge milestone comes for Abram in the form of a name change. He has now given the name Abraham, which means the father of many nations. And Sarai's name is changed to Sarah. Because let's face it, guys, Sarai means quarrelsome. And you know how that turned out.
Pregnant.
Years pass, and God, in the form of a human, along with two angels, remind Abraham of the promise he made many moons ago. But God has other news as well. He's come to warn Abraham that Sodom, yes, we finally get to Sodom, must be destroyed for its wickedness.
Great outcry against the wickedness in Sodom. I am going to destroy it.
But Abraham, of course, knows that his cousin Lot is still living there. So he asks for a little favor.
Surely there are righteous men in Sodom. Will they be slain too? I must know. Will the Lord spare Sodom if there are 50 honorable men?
Yes, Abraham, I will spare Sodom for 50 men.
What if there are 45 good men?
If I can find 40...
But even 40 good men are worth sparing, or 30?
Yes, even for 30.
What about 10 good men?
Because I love you, Abraham, I will spare Sodom. But only if I can find 10 good men in that city.
Thank you, Lord.
Return here in the morning to witness Sodom's fate.
All the while testing God's patience, which is probably what you don't want to do. But they're tight. They've known each other for years. And here we actually divert from Abraham's story and follow the two angels who came with God down to Sodom, where they meet up with Lot.
Thank you. We are very tired from our trip. Can you show us to the center of town?
Oh, please. You must spend the evening at my house.
Lot, you have to leave Sodom now.
What? What are you talking about?
You know of the wickedness in Sodom and Gomorrah.
And after they tell them of their impending doom, they get Lot and his family and leave. Yes, they skipped over some of the R-rated situations. And Sodom and Gomorrah are promptly destroyed. But not before a good old-fashioned musical number.
God, Sodom and Gomorrah are full of men. Everyone's a sinner, so I'm getting rid of them. But some of them are good, says Abraham. Please hear me out, if I'm the chosen one. There must be 50, 40, 30, maybe 10 men like my nephew Lot. They aren't all bad, so don't kill them. Your grace is all we've got.
Guess there weren't 10 righteous men there after all. If only Lot's family was a wee bit bigger. And then we have one more tragic moment where Lot's wife turns to give one last look to her hometown, when she was specifically told not to.
But whatever you do, do not look back at Sodom.
And she is turned into a pillar of salt. Man, what is with people and not listening to carefully given instructions? Remember, children, always listen to your parents. And that's the end of Sodom and Gomorrah. Let me tell you, buddy, nobody grieves like Abraham. This guy, just look at him. He can cry on cue. Not just an action hero. Just look at that skill. But wait, there's a happy ending. Abraham and Sarah finally have their son, Isaac, who will be made into a great nation. Just look at that face. That baby is living the dream. And there we have it, ending on a happy note.
Abraham, I am the Lord God. I have made a covenant with you and your descendants.
Wait a minute, fellas. Stop rolling the clip. I said we're ending it on a happy note. No. Okay. Now that we're rolling the clip anyway, apparently, we're moving on to the list. Happy stuff. You see, God tells Abraham he needs one more piece of evidence that he puts God first. And to do that, he needs to sacrifice his son Isaac.
And sacrifice him there as a burnt offering on the summit of the mountain.
I've heard you, Lord. I shall obey.
So after all that they went through, Sarah's probably like, what? But they decide to go through with it anyway. And let me tell you, Isaac starts to become a little weary about the whole situation.
Father, where is the lamb for the sacrifice?
The Lord will provide us with the lamb, my son.
Let me tell you, that is one obedient child. Sure, Father, I'll get on top of the sacrificial altar. Sure, Father, I'll be bound to it. No problem. Thanks, Father. Not like today's rebellious hooligans running all over the place with that me mentality.
But I'm pregnant.
Ugh. And then Abraham. He gets ready to do the deed.
You must lie here, my son, and you must not move.
All right, Father.
Use the force, Luke.
I do this as the absolute proof of my loyalty to you, Lord.
But not before yet another jiving musical number.
You want a child, God gives you a son. Isaac is his name, you love him like no one. You think by now your life's work is done. Then God says, well, you're the chosen one. Take your son to Mount Moriah, build an altar and lay him there. Start a fire underneath him and offer him to me in prayer. Abraham, Abraham, what you gonna do? God's chosen light is all over you. It's on your face, it's on your brow, it's in your heart, and God knows how. So what, oh, what, oh, what are you gonna do now?
Abraham, Abraham! I am here. Stop. Do not lay your hand upon your son.
But in true last-minute heroic fashion, the Lord provides a ram for the sacrifice, knowing full well that Abraham has passed the test. And Isaac must be all like, thank God, literally. So we have a happy ending after all. Whew! So what can we say about this video on Sodom and Gomorrah, which wasn't really about Sodom and Gomorrah? Well, I'll tell you one thing, the animation's not great. I mean, the voice acting's fine, and the character sketches are good too, but the animation isn't very fluid. However, I think the plot flows well enough to keep people like me, I mean the children, interested in the long run. And a little humor don't hurt neither. But Benny Boy, what about that last and final segment? God asked Abraham to sacrifice his own son. That's a bit morbid, isn't it? Well, if you look at the entire context, Abraham and the Lord had a long relationship as the film portrays, and I think they portrayed it pretty well. In that sense, they were in fact pretty tight, and I really think the whole test was for Abraham, rather than God. And you also need to remember the fact that the Lord promised Abraham that he would be the father of many nations through Isaac. So you can see the whole conflict that Abraham must have been going through in the entire ordeal.
I must know if you love me, Abraham.
Sacrifice my son, father of many nations. But God, you promised!
Cheers.
No, okay, don't. I'll go.
You will?
You were really gonna do that, weren't you?
Well, yeah.
You were gonna drink the fat.
So it stands to reason why Abraham became so good at crying on cue. I mean, all he has to do is think back to that moment and BAM! Tears. Inspiring. Well, patience, perseverance, and trust goes a long way, especially in a relationship. A relationship is a two-way street, and we see this with Abraham's relationship with God in the film. And we also see the struggles he goes through when interacting and dealing with other people. So just remember, even with people you barely come into contact with, trust, respect, and compassion can go a really long way. And a long-lasting relationship can reap greater rewards for both parties. Well, that's it for me. I'm BennyBoyGreene, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos. Please, I beg of you.
Build an altar and lay him there. Start a fire underneath him and offer him to me in prayer. Abraham, what you gonna do? God's chosen.